Welcome to a new week. This week we'll be looking at the relevance of biology to agriculture. In our lesson this week, we have the following objectives. You should be able to classify plants using agricultural techniques. Secondly, you should be able to classify plants using botanical methods. Thirdly, you should be able to classify plants based on their life cycle. And you should be able to describe the effects of various agricultural practices or activities on ecological system. Now, generally, plants are classified into three based on this criteria, which is agricultural method or agricultural classification, botanical classification, and life cycle classification. Let's start by looking at the agricultural classification, which entails the agricultural uses of these plants. This is the basis of this agricultural classification. The first one, we have plants that we call root crops, plants that have underground organs that are modified for storing food, such as cassava, yam, carrot, etc. These are the ones that we call root crops. The second one, we have vegetable crops. Vegetable crops, they are cultivated for their roots, both stems and leaves, because they supply vitamins that are necessary for human growth. So all these minerals that humans and animals use are the reason why we always cultivate these ones that we call vegetable crops. Example, okra, tomato, onion, garden egg, pumpkin, cabbage, etc. This third one is cereals and grain crops. The cereals and grain crops, they are always cultivated for their seeds. They belong to the grass family, so they always provide carbohydrate. Example, we have rice, we have millet, we have maize, we have wheat, and etc. The fourth one is legumes. Legumes are plants that are cultivated for their fruits and seed, which are always rich in proteins. So these plants, they are cultivated for human consumption. Some of them are the fodder crops that are used for feeding livestock. So we have examples of such as groundnuts, soybean, cowpea, beans. All these are leguminous crops. We have fiber crops. Fiber crops they are always cultivated or produced for their economical importance. So because they have fibers, so they can be used as raw materials in production of different things. Example, we have cotton, we have jute, we have sisal. For they are always used for making something like fabrics, sacks, even paper and ropes. Another one, we have oil crops, plants that are cultivated for the oils that are stored in their fruit and seed. We have example, granite, we have palm fruit, we have shea butter, we have coconut. These are the examples of oil crops. We have another one, which is the latex crops. Latex crops are crops that produce latex. Latex is a milk or sticky fluid that comes out from such plants. So we have this latex being used as a raw material for making rubber and other synthetic products. Example is the natural rubber plant that we know. We have beverages and stimulants. The vegetative part of this plant that we call beverages or stimulants are used for stimulating some certain hormones in the body. So these plants that we call stimulants, they always act as a raw material for beverages and also some stimulant products. The example, we have cocoa, we have coffee, we have tobacco. We have fruit crops, plants that produce fruits. They are edible and also they produce rich source of vitamins. So even minerals and sugars are embedded in these plants. Examples of such plants are orange, pawpaw, mango, banana, pineapple, pear, etc. Why you have the next one as spices. Spices, they are plants that have medicinal properties. So some of them are used to spice up or add flavor to food. Example, we have garlic, we have onion, we have curry leaves. These are spices. Why we have another one as forage crops. The forage crops, they are pasture and fodder crops that farm animals feed on. They graze on these plants in order for them to obtain food. We have grasses, we have legumes. These are examples of forage crops. We have the last one here as cash crops, plants that are produced for export. They are being exported out of the country for foreign exchange. Cocoa, oil palm, rubber, cola, and cotton are examples of these plants that we call cash crops. The second classification is based on life cycle. Based on life cycle, plants are classified into three. We have those that are annual plants, we have those that are biennial plants, and perennial plants. Based on annual plants, these are plants that complete their life cycle in one growing season. That's within a year. We have such examples of yam, grasses, beans, lettuce, rice, tomatoes, and some vegetables. They are the ones that we say that are annual plants. They complete their life cycle in one growing season. The second one, we call them the biennial plants. The biennial plants are plants which complete their life cycle in two growing seasons. Why we have some examples of biennial plants as plants like carrot, celery, cabbage. These are some of the examples. The third one, perennial plants. They are plants that complete their life cycle in many years. They live for many years. We call them perennial plants. We have something like mango, orange, oil palm, cocoa, and rubber. Classification of plants. Botanical classification of plants. In botanical classification of plants, plants are classified into four. These are plants here. These are plants. We have four categories where plants are classified. Here we have pteridophytes, we have bryophytes, we have talophytes, and we have the spermatophytes. We put this together. This, both the flowering and this, they are the spermatophytes. So we have this, the seed plants and the non-seed plants. Based on the non-seed plants are classified into three, while the seed plants are classified into two. First of all, we'll talk about the non-seed plants. We start from the primitive one, which is the talophyte. The talophyte. What are the characteristics of the talophyte? They are the most primitive plants that ever existed. We call them the alga, the talophyte. Their body is not differentiated. This plant, their body is not differentiated into stem, roots, and leaves. So it's made up of undivided thallus, where its name comes from. Thallus. So that's where the name talophyte comes from. So most of them, they are aquatic. They are aquatic, while some of them, you can see some of them as terrestrial, but they always live near moist places. They are autotrophic as plants. All plants are autotrophic. So examples of such plants, we have alga, we have lichen, we have some, if you come to alga, we have the chlorophyta, and some other examples of alga. Where you see spirogyra as an example, you see them here. So if we come to the bryophyte, what are the characteristics of bryophyte? They are non-vascular plants, which means that they don't have vascular bundle. Remember, what are vascular bundle? The two things that make up the vascular tissue is the xylem and the phloem. So which means that this plant, the mosses, they don't have vascular bundle. They don't have xylem and phloem. Again, is that they reproduce by means of spores, not by seed. So that's why they said they are not seed plants. They reproduce by means of spores, not by seed. Their body is not differentiated into stem, root, and leaves. Their body is not differentiated into stem, root, and leaves. So examples of such plant, we have moss plant. This is a typical example of a bryophyte. Now, before we go into this, in our next slide, we'll be looking at life cycle of a moss plant and as well as life cycle of a fern plant. But before that, let's do the characteristics of a fern plant. The characteristics of a fern plant is that the fern plant, the body is differentiated into stem, leaves, and roots. So it has vascular bundle. So it's a vascular plant, and as well as it's reproduced also by means of spores as opposed by seed. So the spores now is representing the seed that the supposed to have been using for their reproduction. So they reproduce by spores, but this one is a vascular plant. This one is not a vascular plant. So in our next slide, we'll be looking at the life cycle of both the moss plant and the pteridophyte, and as well as looking at the characteristics of the seed plant, which we call the spermatophyte.